Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. It's the 24th of November and we have our guest for today, Kelvin Wong, market strategist, a senior market analyst at Oanda. Kelvin, it's always great to have you on the show.
My pleasure, Brian, and happy Friday.
Now, happy Friday indeed. Happy Friday indeed in Japan, because we've got some data out there. Japanese headline inflation numbers rose to a 3-month high. We also have numbers out of services as well as manufacturing PMI. Walk us through that, Kelvin, and what your read is on the situation.
Sure. So if you look at let's start with the core inflation number for October in Japan first. So that's only excluding fresh food. So that number actually rose up to near a 3-month high at 2.9% year on year from September 30-month low of 2.8% year on year. So there are some signs of what we call it a resurging inflationary pressure coming up in Japan, especially due to what I call the higher transacted benchmark oil prices futures that was actually seen in the month of August to September, where oil prices rallied by close to slightly more than 25 percentage. Yeah, but if you look at the pretty much evidence that this round of inflation number seems to be much more we call it primarily driven by oil prices, by the stripping out of that energy price. That means we look at the core inflation rate. That means excluding fresh food and energy. It actually inched down slightly lower to 4% year on year in October from September 4.2%. So if you look at the situation right now in Japan, is that the inflationary pressure seems to be coming up from oil prices. And if you look at the energy prices as per se, so if you look at the current situation in the oil traded WTI crude oil futures, so what we could see in the last few days of, we call it movement, oil prices starts to actually dip down. In fact, that technically speaking, it's really hit a bear market given last Friday. We call it prices, the WTI crude oil came close to $72 per barrel, US dollar per barrel, from a high that was earlier about 90 plus that was seen in September. But what's interesting over here is, as we know, that oil prices is more or less being controlled by OPEC plus, we call it dictation on how much do they want to actually look at the supply cut. So right now, the leading member of OPEC plus, which is Saudi Arabia, seems to be more inching towards a, what I call it, an extension of this ongoing supply cut that they actually enacted in 2023 to extend at least into the first half of 2024. But that got to be seen as we progresses, given the fact that due to some ongoing dispute among OPEC plus members regarding about surrounding this potential extension of these rate cuts. Initially,
Kelvin, I want to interrupt you here, because one of the key things that's also the spanner in the works in terms of OPEC plus pricing power is the fact that the US has been pumping out lots of oil and inventories are rising dramatically. I think it's 9 million barrels at the moment.
Yes. So there's actually a reacting force up from US right now. So that actually kind of we call it give OPEC plus more reasons to actually extend their cut into 2024. But do not forget, OPEC plus actually got to come into agreement with other members, especially the African nations, that actually tends to actually be in more favor to actually reduce their supply cut instead. All right, so that actually potentially sees this, we call it postpone of this scheduled Sunday meeting, which is on the 27th of November, to actually put it towards next Thursday instead, on 30th of November. So it's pretty much interesting to see how OPEC will actually navigate this current situation right now, given the fact that the US also start to actually increase their supply as well. And do not forget, yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And also do not forget over here is that over in Japan right now, due to the fact of this higher, we call it imported inflation due to energy prices, it's been putting a lot of political pressure on Bank of Japan to actually do more to actually negate this ongoing yen weakness against the dollar. So if we recall that last month the dollar yen actually rose to a 33-year high. That means, i.e., in flip side means the Japanese yen weakened to a 33-year low against the dollar.
So, Kelvin, now looking ahead to next week, what are some key data points and events that we should be
Sure.
watching out for next week that would move markets?
Definitely. So for next week, right, if you look at next week, there's a couple of key data points. Closer to Asia will be on Thursday. We have the services, manufacturing and services data, for China. That is for the month of November. So market participants will be looking at how this number work out, given the fact that we currently at this point in time we still start to see a kind of a very cash-strapped property developers market in China. So if we start to see a very weak services and PMI data up from China, potentially China top policymakers got to do more to help to address this ongoing sluggishness, primarily in the property market, that is causing this negative feedback loop throughout the wider economy activities in China. And also on Thursday itself, we have a couple of inflation numbers up in major economy. One will be the Eurozone flash inflation for the month of November, and also the PCE inflation data for October for US. And do not forget the fact that last Tuesday, we start to see a turnaround in global markets, especially the US. Another set of US inflationary data, called the CPI data, actually came in much softer than expected. So that actually kickstart a broad-based dollar weakness in the FX market, and also trigger a kind of a resurgence of risk-on herding behavior, as per se on the recent 1.5 week rally in global stock indices. So let's say if the core PC numbers that's out on Tuesday starts to be on the weaker side of the story, that could actually put more further downside potential pressure on the US dollar.
On that note, Kelvin, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure, brother.
Now, we've been speaking to Kelvin Wong, Senior Market Analyst at Oanda, and this has been BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out this show on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.